So if you would want people to remember one thing or one key idea from your book, what would that be?
That if they want to understand Ladino in the 21st century, they only need to read one book, Ladino on the Internet, Sepharad 4.
Welcome back. So, in this point of the interview, why don't you tell me what Web 3.0 is?
Sure. So the Web 3.0 or 3.0 is the incipient part of the website development of the internet, and it's about decentralization and the use of blockchain technology and tokens. Now, there's been a lot of hype about it, lots of ups and downs, but we can trace its very beginnings to the 2020s. Well, since 2020, this has been an emerging part of the internet. How far will it go? How significant of an impact will it have on the development of Ladino? We still don't know. What we have in this part is mostly speculation, which is why I have consecrated just one chapter to this, chapter 6, which is nonetheless, I think, extremely relevant, particularly if you take into account the late 2022 explosion of AI and how that could be used for Ladino revitalization purposes.
Okay, so when you say tokens, what do you mean? What is that?
Tokens are specific units that can be circulated within an economy based on Web 3.0 and crypto technology. Let me give you specific examples.
Thank you.
We could use tokens for both the metaverse and the network state. So those are the two main platforms I discussed in the chapter, the metaverse and the network state. The metaverse is a virtual space beyond the fractured reality of diaspora, where people can interact with each other through an avatar and elements of virtual and augmented reality. So it's this creation by Mark Zuckerberg with the metaverse Google's, where they can interact with other people from across the globe. The idea here, I think the main disruption in the metaverse technology is that you no longer need credentials to sign into Gmail, Facebook, YouTube, Zoom to partake in the Ladino speaking communities. Now with a single avatar, you can participate with the same digital identity in all of these spaces at the same time. That is the metaverse, right? So that's what makes it particularly appealing. You don't need people who are leading encuentros Lajal, Ladino 21, Ladino Comunidad to come together and agree to do something that will involve all the members. That is already implicit in the idea of the metaverse. That's the main innovation. The metaverse had received a lot of funding and attention in the early 2020s. Now I think it's in an stagnation phase. How long will it go? We don't know. The last platform I discuss in the book is the network state, and the network state is truly revolutionary. And I wanted to discuss this with you too, because I'm very curious about what's your perspective on the reason why network states exist. So the network state is essentially the latest iteration of the nation state. And here's the thing, here's what I consider this absolutely crucial for Ladino.
Okay.
I think nation states historically have failed the Ladino speaking community. I think the Ladino speaking community has not found a state where they see their voice represented and appreciated, whether that state is Spain, Portugal, Israel, Turkey, France, United States, you name it. What's your perspective on this? Do you think there is a possibility of the Ladino speaking community being recognized and celebrated within the framework of the nation state? You think it's just a matter of changing the nation state, or you think the framework itself is flawed?
I think considering a lot of the Ladino heritage speakers died or are dying out, with due respect, I I know, I think it's difficult because then you have questions of like Orientalism
Mhm.
and I guess the fetishization of Sephardic Jews and Sephardic culture, which tends to come from non-Sephardic and non-Mizrahi Ashkenazi Jews.
Mhm.
The way that Sephardim and Mizraim have been treated within the Jewish community. I don't know how like Ladino would be recognized and respected outside of it being like a commodity. And do you know what I'm saying? I can't
Yes,
really
yeah,
explain.
I think that what you're saying, or the way I'm interpreting it, is that fetishization of the community is just the other side of the coin of the traditional marginalization of that community, right? These are two forms of othering Sephardim,
Mm-hmm.
whether it is to pedestalize them as in, oh, how exotic, how cool they are, etc., or to downplay their importance, right? As in, you're not truly Jewish because you don't speak Yiddish, etc.
Mm-hmm.
My question is, what? Yes, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, no, carry on.
So my question is, what's the link between that, on which we agree, and the accommodation or lack thereof of Ladino speakers within the framework of the nation state? I don't see the link between those two ideas, even though I agree with both. You know what I'm saying? Do you mean that as long as Ladino speakers are part of a certain nation state, they will always be either fetishized or marginalized?
Yes, I think to a certain extent, yes.
Mhm, mhm. So
Um,
therefore, that provides ammo for the creation of a framework that it goes beyond the legacy nation states which have failed Sephardim, right? And that framework is called the network state. So what is a network state? The notion comes from Balaji Srinivasan in 2022 via a book of the same name, The Network State. And it's essentially the following steps. First, you build an online community. And that online community is predicated on a very simple mission of just one idea. One idea which is both disruptive and that all members endorse. For instance, Ladino is a language that belongs in the 21st century and should be preserved. Not everybody agrees, but anybody who is part of that community needs to agree on that, right? Once you have that people who agree on that premise, then you scale that community and you turn it into what I call in the book a digital homeland based on Michael Hell's article, right? You turn it into a proper online community, not just a mere repository of messages, but actually something that feels like a community where people know each other by name, they interact genuinely, and sometimes they even meet in person afterwards, right? The third step is then that the people of that digital homeland, which Srinivasan calls network union, they meet in person. And once they meet in person, they create an internal economy based on what? Tokens. We can call it Sephardito or whatever unit that allows people to exchange value within that group, within that community. And once you have that internal economy, you acquire physical real estate.
okay.
And that physical real estate is mediated by Ethereum or crypto Web3 passports, which are forms of digital identity that allow you to access that physical space. For instance, suppose you go to the University of California State Fullerton, right? And you have a room there that can only be accessed by people who are part of this community. So you will go there, you will have a face scan or whatever other technology that allows you to showcase your credentials and then access that based on those credentials. That's what it will look like. It will be a mixed reality community. And that way, you no longer have to be in the same territorial space for you to belong to that community. You can maybe have a building in Tokyo and a university in Myanmar and a synagogue in Sao Paulo. And those three physical spaces can be all the real estate owned by the Ladino speaking community. You see, now it's an online, it's a mixed reality. It's an online community, but also physical community in the sense that people can come together in all those three spaces and they own those spaces literally. But those spaces are in three different legacy nation states. And once you have that and you have the numbers and enough territory, then you can apply to obtain diplomatic recognition from the legacy nation states, from Israel, from Spain, from Portugal, etc. and then you become a network state proper. And here's the kicker, that leads ultimately to what? To reverse diaspora. Ladino started with the meta diaspora, with a diaspora after the diaspora, meaning the one from the Iberian Peninsula, right? It developed in diaspora, and now it comes back in a physical community of territories which are not contiguous but are nonetheless physical, therefore ending in a reverse diaspora, which is a thesis that hasn't been put forward before. So it's a very radical one that will ruffle some feathers, probably, but needed to be said, so I said it in the book.
Well, it is very radical because if it fails, it fails, right? If you, I don't know, the cloud, you upload everything to the cloud. If that fails, you've lost everything. And I just...
Well, and hence blockchain, right? The idea of blockchain is that it's unbreakable, that you need to crack mathematical algorithms to have access to that, which are too complex for one human individual. And that is private, that is transparent. It just functions like the same way you send crypto. It's instantaneous. It's there forever, that transaction, but at the same time, it's very hard to trace. So that's a way blockchain could serve to record the history and the language of Sephardim, in the sense that everybody can provide information and knowledge, and that knowledge is safely stored.
But then I would be concerned that it's just othering Sephardim even more, putting them there, and then while other communities, not even just Jewish communities, but just larger communities within minority communities, get to live in the physical world, it just carry on, and evolve naturally, whereas the Sephardic communities have to completely switch lanes and do something completely radical.
Right, I know what you mean, and I think that this problem existed prior to Web 3.0, and is what it has been referred to the museification of marginalized communities, right? You put them in a museum and that's it, that's all they are, right? You have their special day of Sephardim, and after that day and before that, nobody cares.
Yeah.
See, nobody cares. No, it's not that. What I mean is that the principle of mixed reality defies that othering, because it never ceases to be physical. It's not a reduction of Sephardic culture to the internet. It's a mixed reality that is mutually reinforcing and that is constantly updatable. We just don't have the numbers to create a contiguous, co-territorial, physical community that can be modeled after a big nation state like France or Spain. There's just not enough Sephardim that could be put in the same type of territory and community. So the mixed reality, I think, with territories here and there that can only be accessed by people from that community is as close as it gets to the idea of reverse diaspora, the idea of claiming a nation state for your own, which I don't think it's either feasible or even desirable, because as we said, the nation state hasn't done much for Sephardim anyway. So why should it be different this time?
Oh, absolutely. And I also think there is questions of Zionism, though, right? In its basic form of Jews' claim to their ancestral homeland, which is Israel. If people can agree or disagree, that's not what I'm saying here. But there's that. I don't think that's reconcilable with this idea of the what did you call it, network state, because there is you kind of can't separate the religious aspect for some Jews.
Right. You mean which idea is not reconcilable with that religious aspiration? The network state or another nation state, a la Zionism?
Well, I think having a network state, I think the physical land of Israel, Palestine, it means something to a lot of Jews, and I think that's you can't, for some people you can't separate it. So whilst I think
so your argument is that the decentralization of Web 3.0, which we see as in principle as an advantage when it comes to historical and religious claims to land, then either it doesn't work, or perhaps with more being a bit more charitable, could work if part of that physical territory is within the limits of Israel/Palestine, right? Like, suppose this network state that we say about Tokyo and Myanmar and the US and Brazil features also a part of Jerusalem. Would that be enough for that network state to have the required religious significance and land claim that would justify reverse diaspora proper for Sephardim? Or would it have to be constrained to, say, the current territory of Israel? Is the fact that there is territory outside of the Middle East which is claimed as part of Sepharad problematic? That would be Sepharad 5, by the way. I talk about this in terms of Sepharad 5 in the book. So could Sepharad 5 include territories worldwide? Because it's a diasporic community at the end of the day. I understand the historical and religious claim, but it's also a fact that it's a diasporic community which has to involve some sort of global movement, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, because some Jews, and especially some Sephardim, really cling to the idea of returning to Israel, like, no
Right,
matter
so
what, like that is just the end goal for
right.
some people, regardless. It's like, we were expelled from the Iberian Peninsula, we were expelled from there, blah 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 blah.
Right. Yeah. But my argument is normative in the sense of, I'm not arguing about what is actually the case. Yes, I agree with you, right? Suvira Israel or Azer Aliyah is always there, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's always seen as the ultimate goal.
Yeah.
But that ultimate goal is predicated partly, at least, on a nation state. Yeah, I know Israel is more than a nation state, right? But it's also a nation state. And so, my question is whether that should still be the case moving forward. That's what I'm saying, like having the ultimate goal intractably linked to claiming part in a nation state that does not necessarily favor you over other communities within the same country, but could potentially, right? But how? Because it hasn't happened in history yet. So
I think it would mean reworking what the actual nation state is now. So if there was going to be that claim to Israel,
so now you're answering my question. So you do see a way forward within the realm of the network of the nation state?
Yes, yeah. Sorry, I do, but I think it wouldn't be the state of Israel in this in its iteration as it is now. It would have to be.
But you don't need to throw the baby with the proverbial bathwater. You could preserve the nation state, change it, and make it adaptable for Sephardim. That you think that is possible? Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I think the network state is could be a more productive solution, but I don't claim this as an argument of authority, or I'm not sure this is the end all be all or the actual solution, but I think it could be. It hasn't been thought yet. Balaji Srinivasan does talk about Jewish diaspora in his book for a couple of paragraphs, but he doesn't delve in particular into the Sephardic diaspora. Yeah.
So moving on. Can you talk about the role of AI and the digital revitalization of Ladino, please?
Yes, so this book is not about AI, but it does include something about AI in the last chapter because it had to for a book published in 2025.
Yeah.
And the main way in which I see AI working is Web 3.0 AI-driven technology built into Web 2.0 platforms. So what I mean by this is, for instance, you open Google Chrome, type Ladino type, which is a smart transliteration system, write in the Latin script and have that in Solitreo or in Rashi or in both. That's the use of AI within Web 2.0 realm. Now you're still operating within Google, but you're using AI for the purpose of doing a smart transliteration or automatic transliteration. Again, it's not flawless, but it's pretty accurate. I am actively working on an AI initiative about Ladino that, in my opinion, will be the most useful one since the creation of Ladino Comunidad for the community of Ladino speakers. But it will be released in January, and therefore people will have to wait 1 week to know exactly what the initiative is about. But it's based on large language models, the explosion of ChatGPT, and the ability to interact in Ladino in the 21st century without intermediaries.
Okay.
Yes, that's as much as I can say. I think I said a lot. I said a lot.
Okay, that's very exciting. So, do you have an exact date of
It
when we
will
can
be
expect the?
the end of January. The end of January. So that's going to be around next week. Yes.
Okay, it's really exciting.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Sepharad 5 is here. Is here.
And I guess what was the process of like setting out then? Like, what? Can you tell me a bit about it, or is that already? Does that
I
say
can
too
tell
much?
you off record. Definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'll ask you off record.
All right. Sure.
Thank you very much. You've given me a lot of food for thought, and I'm really looking forward to reading more about the network state so I can wrap my head around it a little bit more. But I'm really excited about this book. So thank you
Thank
for
you
your
so
time.
much. Thank you so much, Joel, for this wonderful interview. People can find the book for free open access in the link below in the description. And I hope that any questions they have, they can just send us an email and contact me. Thank you so much.